Welcome to a brand new season of Ink Differently, the podcast that dives into the vibrant world of personalized product decoration. I'm Rhonda, your host and education manager here at Sawgrass. In each episode, I'll be chatting with the amazing minds behind Sawgrass, as well as talented Sawgrass users just like you. Together, we'll uncover inspiring stories, expert tips, and the cutting-edge innovation that makes Sawgrass the industry leader in sublimation printing and customized product design. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, this season is packed with creativity, community, and game-changing insights you won't want to miss. So our guest today on Ink Differently is my friend Alex Fox. Now, technically, Alex is our first non-Sawgrass employee to be on the show, but he truly is a friend of Sawgrass. If you've seen any of our great videography or photography lately, that's Alex. He's been helping us out with that. And if several years ago you saw any of our great photography and video, well, that was Alex too, because he used to work directly with us. So we're so glad to have him with us. Alex, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a lot of fun to be on the other side of the production table.
All right, Alex. So I'm going to put you on the spot. We want to get to know you a little bit better. So I'm going to ask you some would you rather questions.
Okay.
All right. All right. Would you rather time travel back to the past or to the future?
I would say the past.
The past, why? Well, you said you're a history buff.
Yeah, I'm a history buff. It would be fun to see things with my own eyes. And plus, I mean, think of the potential to be able to, win with like, you ever see Back to the Future Part 2?
Yeah.
Where the guy has like the sports book, like you can bet on. I just have to remember anything at all, any kind of victory I can bet on it.
I know, right?
So,
and you can go in the future.
Yeah.
Would you rather be able to read minds or be invisible?
I think I would rather be able to read minds. I feel like that would be more generally useful than creeping around invisible.
See, Rhodes and I have decided that we really don't want to know what people are thinking and that we'd rather be invisible just so we can kind of sneak.
I think you can turn it on and off, though.
Yeah, there you go, as long as you can turn it on and off. Would you rather take cold showers every day or eat cold meals every day?
That is a tough one. So all cold meals, like no hot meal ever?
No hot meal ever, but when you think about the things that you can eat cold, salads, sandwiches, chips, of course.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go for the cold meals because I don't mind a cold shower now and then, but it is really nice to be able to take a hot shower.
Awesome. Would you rather live without music or movies for the rest of your life?
So that's a tough one because I was actually a film major in college. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design for film and video production. So I do love movies, but at this point in my life, I've seen a lot of movies. So I would probably be okay with living without movies. If I had to choose, I would choose to keep music and give up movies.
Well, what is 85% of the movies out today just a remake of something else anyway, it feels like, right?
Yeah, I can read the book or I can listen to the soundtrack. So
there you go. Would you rather have everything that you eat be a little too salty or not salty enough?
Oh, not salty enough. I'm okay with it being a little bland, but when things are like too salty, it just drives me crazy.
All right. And the final one. Would you rather give up pizza or give up ice cream?
I really like ice cream. I'd have to give up pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a 50-50 one, but yeah. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today and for playing along. So Alex, let's start with your sublimation story. How did you learn about sublimation?
So as you mentioned, I used to be on the team here within Sawgrass, and even after moving on to other opportunities, I have stayed on great terms with everybody here. I love the team, love the people, love the technology. And that's uncommon for me to say because I don't love a lot of technology. I'm kind of, my shop on Etsy, my blog is techno-skeptical. So I tend to have a dim view of a lot of the things that control our lives from an electronic and digital standpoint. But I learned about sublimation when I was working here. And at that time, part of my role was on the marketing team. We were trying to spread the word about sublimation and teach the world at large how great it is, all the things you can do with it. So as part of me learning how to explain the process to anyone else, I had to learn about it myself.
Exactly. I think that's where we all fall. I don't think anyone who comes to work here has heard about sublimation until we go to prep for our interview. And then you have to learn how to do it to be able to tell other people about it. So you're very right there. So what was your first project that you made and then sold to someone?
So I'm a big believer that if you work in a restaurant, you should eat the cooking, right? So if you work in a sublimation company that's trying to empower creative entrepreneurs, become a creative entrepreneur. So that's exactly what I did. I started off, I believe, with coffee mugs. So a coffee mug is, by and large, the highest margin item that you can make with sublimation. A couple of challenges with selling coffee mugs is you have to be careful shipping them because they can break, they're fragile, and they're also relatively heavy. So shipping is expensive versus smaller items. But nonetheless, I started off with coffee mugs, and honestly, I'm still doing it. I branched out to other items. I guess we'll probably talk about that. But I have my own little online, my Etsy store, and I have my little coffee mugs that I've designed and that I make in my garage, and that's how it all began.
So how did you decide to open a store?
So I decided to open a store because I wanted to take our own advice. So I'm a big believer in the idea that if you work in a restaurant, you should eat the cooking. And if you work at this, in this example, as a sublimation company, you should be a creative entrepreneur. So that's what I decided to do. At that time, Sawgrass had not launched their own platforms yet for e-commerce, and Etsy was really the only game in town. So that's what I did. I opened a little Etsy shop, and my concept at first was, since I'm a graphic designer by trade, at least one of my trades, is my idea was, hey, we always have all these kind of pop culture villains. People love villains. I said, what if we did identity, like logos for villains? I thought that people might like that. So I called it Villain Brands, and I had a Etsy shop called Villain Brands, and I had like a thing from like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and various sort of like film noir kind of villains. And I started with that. And the products I used initially were coffee mugs. So the coffee mug is a great product to start off with because it's sort of universally appealing. It's easy to explain to people what you do, and it's relatively easy to sublimate because once you set your press and you kind of know the time and temperature and pressure, you can just keep cranking them out without a lot of lost material. So that was how I started.
So we know you do coffee mugs, that's where you started. But tell me a little bit about the other things you sublimate and then how you sell them.
Sure. So the thing with coffee mugs is that they can be fragile, they're kind of heavy to ship, so it costs, your customer more to pay for the shipping. So I find apparel to be really the number one thing people are interested in getting. So t-shirts are always in style. Everybody loves t-shirts. People will buy 1,000 t-shirts. And so one of the historic limitations of sublimation is you have to really stick to white or light colored polyester. And a lot of people don't like A, polyester fabric, and B, white shirts can be a little boring. So what happened a few years ago was people discovered you could sublimate on tri-blend, like 50-50 polycotton or tri-blend. And so that's what I did. I started buying different samples of tri-blend shirts and seeing which one sublimated. And honestly, there's no rhyme or reason. You can have the same shirt in one color that'll sublimate beautifully, and the same shirt in a different color, the sublimation ink doesn't even show up at all. So through just kind of trial and error, I kind of narrowed it down to about 4 colors that I use, and I have a variety of designs, and they're all available in these 4 colors. So that's how I do that. Now, of course, VersiFlex has blown that wide open because now you're not limited to only light colors, and you're not limited to fabric that has polyester in it. So it really is sort of a new world, and I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Now, I know you have a full-time job, plus all these other projects that you do. How much of your time do you spend on producing products?
That's a great question because it has evolved over time. So when I first started off, I was like, I really want to be top-notch customer service. Like as soon as somebody orders, I want to be making that product and putting it in the mail. So the first, I would say maybe a year and a half, 2 years, probably like 2 Christmases, right? 2 Christmas seasons. I was trying to do like 24-hour turnaround. So I was in the garage like every night I had an order, which I didn't have an order every day, but whenever I got an order, I'd be in the garage making the product. And eventually that became quite stressful. And I was like, okay, I've got to back off a little bit here. So I changed it to, and on Etsy you can say how long it takes you to ship things. So I changed it to like, I think 3 days. So 3 days, basically it buys you the weekend, and then if you do 2 days a week, so usually I'll do like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then a Sunday. So that way, anything that comes in like Thursday through Sunday, I'll submit on Sunday and ship out on Monday, and then whatever comes in like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll submit on Wednesday and ship out. So that works better, and usually it's not that much. It might be like, because I don't get a ton of orders, it's sort of slow and steady. So I'll, probably be maybe an hour, a couple times a week, actually operating the heat press.
Ah, awesome. So how do you organize your workflow to get everything done?
I am kind of a productivity nerd. I'm big on organization. So in fact, if you visit my Etsy shop, you'll see I also sell printable planners and organizers, which are my own design. So I try to do a little bit of everything. But time management is key because I find that if you put your energy into the things that are important, rather than the things that are unimportant, then you have enough time. So yes, I have a family, I've got a full-time job, and I do like all kinds of other things on the side. And I do it because A, I don't watch a lot of TV, and B, I'm always doing something, like I never stop. So some of that's a personality thing. I'm just sort of a naturally high-strung person that always has a lot of things running through my brain. And then the other part of that is I do try to stay organized so that I'm not trying to figure out what to do next at any given time. I already know, I have a plan for the day, I know what I'm doing.
All right, well, how do you get the word out about your store?
So this is one of those things where, as the old expression goes, the shoemaker's children have no shoes, right? So because I've spent my career working in marketing and communications, one would think that I was great at marketing my own products, and actually I'm not. That's actually sort of my weak point. Not because I don't understand the concepts of marketing or how to do it, but because I'm sort of self-conscious about it. I don't like promoting myself. I do a tiny bit on social media because I just feel sort of, not embarrassed exactly, but it just feels like I don't know. It just feels like a little uncomfortable. So that's something I'm trying to get better at. I'm trying to get better at being like putting myself out there like, hey, I've got something that you might enjoy, and I spent a long time, I put a bunch of effort into it. It's not AI generated, and you might make a great gift, right? So I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
So if you put your marketing hat on and give yourself marketing advice, what would you suggest to yourself that you do?
I think it's all about social media these days. It's 100%, because unless you want to pay for advertising, which nobody, who's got a side hustle is I think in a position to pay for Google advertising. You've got to just get on social media. You've got to present people with things that are valuable or interesting or entertaining or funny, and then they will pay attention to you. And once you have their attention, then you can introduce them gently to the idea that you have things available for purchase.
Awesome. So what is the biggest lesson you've learned owning a store?
The biggest lesson I've learned is probably that there is a market for niche items. There's a lot, if you look at marketing advice, right? And there are a million people on Instagram, for example, who are saying, hey, here's how I built a 6-figure Etsy store. And a lot of what they recommend revolves around trend chasing. So look at what's selling and then make something that's just a tiny bit different and promote the heck out of it. And clearly there are people that are making that work. I have not been able to make that work. I feel like basically the people that are already in the space for whatever the trend is at the moment, and they've established a dominant position in that space, they're going to get 99% of the sales, and everybody else is going to be fighting over the other 1%. So you're better off developing a niche that you're personally interested in and that you understand, and therefore the fans of whatever that is. So for me, it's a lot of like sort of pop culture and history, right? Sort of the two things that I'm kind of into and I think lend themselves well to design. So there are other people like that who also find that interesting and amusing, and there are not a ton of other people competing for that. So my advice to other people would be find something that you are personally interested in, especially if you're doing your own designs. Because I think every designer should have their own side hustle, their own shop, because if you're designing stuff, you may as well sell it. And my advice would be whatever it is you're personally interested in, whatever you want to exist in the world, create that and don't worry too much about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I went to a con last year, so a show, and you would have fit in perfectly. But the thing is if you're making something that doesn't appeal to you, then that's going to show. Like, you're going to be bored. You're not going to be invested. You're not going to look like you care.
Right.
And then you're not going to sell anything.
And now with AI, like if you're not putting a lot of like personal like interest and background knowledge into whatever it is you're making, it's going to look like it's just AI generated.
Right.
And I don't think we've seen it yet, but we're about to see a huge glut on the market of just AI generated graphics that look pretty cool at first glance, but they're all going to be kind of the same.
Yeah.
And I think underestimating the disruptive impact of AI would be a big mistake. Yeah. We're gonna need to figure out as humans what we bring to the table that a computer doesn't.
Exactly, and I think that niche piece that you're talking about really goes into that.
Totally.
Okay, so earlier this year, you got the unique experience of being one of the very first people to see and use VersiFlex, our new decorating technology. You actually were here the day that it came out of the lab and into my area, and so you were one of the first people outside of the chemist to actually touch it. What were your first thoughts?
I was blown away. Like, I instantly recognized the potential for this to be a major change in the market, because the whole time I was here, the whole time that I've just been a friend of Sawgrass or consulting afterwards, it's always been polyester. Polyester, polyester, polyester. There's no way around it, right? You have to have the polymers to bond the ink to, or the ink literally goes into, sublimates into the polyester. And now all of a sudden it's totally different. So VersiFlex is essentially like screen printing. So with screen printing, you're putting the ink on the surface of the fabric and it sticks there, and you can wash it, and maybe it gets, it kind of gets that nice kind of crackle effect over time that people like, that vintage look for screen printing. But the thing with screen printing is you've got to set up a screen. And setting up a screen is expensive, it's messy, it's time consuming. You wind up with like a big physical wooden frame with a screen on it that you can only use for one thing. It's one size. And all of those limitations are gone with VersiFlex. Now you can print out with your Sawgrass printer from your personal computer in your house or in your garage a piece of artwork, and you can transfer it to cotton. You can transfer it to natural fabrics. You're not limited to polyester. And it's as though you had a screen printing shop in your house, on your desktop, that was not limited by size or any other factor. Right? At this point, the only limiting factor is the darkness of the fabric, which, by the way, is the same for screen printing. Right? Screen printing, the reason you can get a black t-shirt with a colorful design on it is because they do a base layer of white ink, and then they put the colorful ink on top of the white ink. Right? So that's a two-step process. There's no good way at this stage of the game to replicate that with a single transfer. But Even medium colors like red, yellow, blue look great with VersiFlex. Khaki, olive green. There are so many colors now that are open. And from a business standpoint, cotton shirts are a lot cheaper than polyester shirts or tri-blend. So if you're running an Etsy shop, everybody's cost conscious these days, right? The cost of everything has gone up. Everybody knows, food, fuel, energy, and then those costs drive everything else, including the blanks that we use to sublimate onto. So if you can now buy a blank shirt that costs 50 to 60% less than a polyester or tri-blend shirt, you can now charge the same amount for your product and make more money, or you can charge a lower price and potentially sell more because now it's easier for people to purchase it. So from a business standpoint, VersiFlex makes a tremendous amount of sense, and from a creative standpoint, it's very exciting.
It's so exciting. It has really opened up like so many avenues to what you can do and what you can make. It's been so much fun. Now, we did send you home with a VersiFlex printer that day, let you do some testing. I know you really love the cotton shirts, but what are some other products that you've enjoyed making with VersiFlex?
I think the overall umbrella I would say is the natural materials. Wood looks amazing with VersiFlex. Yes, apparel for sure, the cotton t-shirts, but also the linen, tote bags, all the stuff that you would go and you would buy at a store, right? You can now make it in your house and it looks as though it were a commercially produced product done on a massive screen printing operation.
Yeah, I actually wore a shirt one day and I'm like, I made this with VersiFlex. And they're like, oh, we just assumed you bought it. It looked like a store shirt. But that is a good point about screen printing because you are having to do multiple layers. When we talk about vinyl, same thing. You're having to layer the colors to get anything. So being able to do this with a printer and then not needing anything extra like the powders that come with DTF really kind of opens up a whole new world, doesn't it?
Well, all the other decorating technologies have pretty severe limitations. First of all, they're all a lot more expensive. Whether you're talking about white toner or DTF or DTG, these are complicated technologies. They require big machines that cost a lot of money, a lot of maintenance. The ink is very, very expensive, and you're still limited. It's not like you buy a white toner thing and now all of a sudden I can do it. No, you still have a very strict set of parameters you've got to work in. So with VersiFlex, I feel like the Sawgrass ecosystem is now providing creative entrepreneurs or even hobbyists that just want to make stuff for their friends and family with an incredible range of opportunity to create things that they want to make and use and share and give as gifts.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, if you were going to give some tips and tricks to anyone trying VersiFlex, what would those be?
So number one, I would say have some patience, right? It's very different, especially if you're familiar with sublimation. VersiFlex is different. It requires lower heat, more pressure. Heat presses are not necessarily 100% even, and with VersiFlex, VersiFlex is a little more sensitive to that variation than traditional sublimation. Traditional sublimation is a very forgiving process. So you can be kind of close and it's still going to come out well. With VersiFlex, you've got to take a little time to experiment with whatever the blank is that you want to work with, and don't get frustrated. Your first one is probably not going to turn out perfectly. Turn the pressure up, turn the heat down, check it, do a couple things. And once you get it though, it's so satisfying because it's like, okay, I've figured out my settings and now they're all coming out perfectly. And that is so satisfying. It's so good.
It is so nice when you can do 10 shirts in a row and all 10 shirts be good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really had a great time.